All right. Now, this is something right now to talk about. Whew. What the aspirations are, safer America. What the problem is, we can't come to a solution on the gun violence issue. Let's talk about Coach Gregg Popovich of the San Antonio Spurs, who calls out Ted Cruz and the myth of the Second Amendment. The myth that guns all over the place means freedom. Let's talk about it. Because Ted Cruz fired back at Gregg Popovich after the Spurs coach called that myth of Second Amendment. Popovich called out Cruz on his plan to add more security to schools in wake of the gun violence, right? So we know who Ted Cruz is, Republican from Texas senator. And he was talking about the tighter gun laws he wants to pass and likened the Second Amendment to a myth. Popovich specifically called out Cruz's plan for safer schools in wake of the Uvalde shooting way back last year in Texas. The senator's plan called for more security in schools along with school-based mental health counselors. But they're going to cloak all this stuff, quote, in the myth of the Second Amendment. The freedom, he said in part. You know, it's just a myth. It's a joke. It's just a game they play. I mean, that's freedom. Is it freedom for kids to go to school and try to socialize and try to learn and be scared to death that they might die that day? But Ted Cruz will fix it because he's going to double the number of cops in the schools. That's what he wants to do. Well, that'll create a great environment. Is that freedom, or is it freedom to have a congressman who could make a postcard with all his family holding rifles, including the AR-15 or whatever? Is that cool? Is that like street cred for a Republican? That's freedom. That's more important than protecting kids. I don't get it. Okay, let me pause right here. I just don't like when messages are not direct. And I also don't like when messages are trying to embody more than just what the solution should. And we're going to go back and forth with this with Popovich and Cruz. And the rhetoric is more about their identity and their politics than the solution on gun violence. The Republicans, the Democrats, the liberal, the left, the right. And that's when I just stopped down. I was like, dog, we're never going to solve this if we can't even get out of the name calling and the identification of who you are. Because a bum, whoever you are, the most intelligent person in the world, whoever you are, if you got the answer, trust me, I'm listening. Let's talk about Cruz, who spoke about Popovich's remarks in the latest episode of podcast Verdict with Ted Cruz. Quote, but you know, I do wish you see this at the NBA. You see it at the NFL. These incredibly rich athletes who hypocritically disdain their fans and customers and who lecture them almost inevitably from a point of ignorance. So Gregg Popovich is telling you that it's a myth that the Second Amendment protects your rights. It's a myth that the Second Amendment protects your freedoms. I mean, that's a fairly astonishing proposition. Cruz noted that it is armed police officers or security who generally guard the tunnels and private aspects of the sports arenas to keep players from fans and to stop anyone from running out where they're not supposed to be. You know, quote, there are a lot of NBA games. Police officers, armed police officers with weapons strapped in their holsters. Popovich is surrounded by armed security most of the time. And this is true with so many Hollywood liberals, there we go again, that have armed bodyguards protecting them. And they say, you little people, you don't have a right to defend your family. You don't have a right to defend your children. But me, I'm going to surround in perfect safety and take away your rights to defend yourself. You see the rub here now? Unfortunately, that kind of condescension is all too common. Cruz specifically answered Popovich's question about having more police officers in schools. This is it. Let me be clear. Yes, I want that. Look, I don't get this recent conceit of leftists. Here we go again. That police officers don't make us more safe. Like it is a bizarre view. Listen, it is horrific, the rise in violent crime that we've seen across this country. But leftists like Popovich put none of the blame on George Soros. DAs that are releasing murderers, that put none of the blame on the leftists that they support who are calling for abolishing the police. Instead, they put the blame on you for exercising your right to keep and bear arms to protect your family and your children. He also went on to say it's just weird, it's stupid, and it's counterfactual. All right. let's talk about this because it's so polarizing in searching for this solution. And it's disturbing to me because you guys know this is something near and dear to my heart just because I had to navigate through a violent neighborhood. I had to navigate through violent circumstances. I've been shot at. And I'm just a guy who I think in perspective can talk a little more nuanced about this than just getting behind my side of the political fence and then just taking shots, pun intended, at the other side and then never getting greater and closer to a solution, right? So I joined the organization and formed an organization in partnership called ARGO, Alliance for Responsible Gun Ownership, okay? I personally joined it because too many lives are being lost. Too many lives have been lost. And now this is a national discussion where I grew up and it became a national discussion from us always having to live through it locally. There was a time when we thought this discussion had its borders. Remember those days? Inner cities, violent neighborhoods, the hood. And now it's everywhere. School shootings, movie theater shootings, mall shootings, church shootings, etc. So me personally, what I believe in are gun rights, gun responsibility, and gun restrictions. I want to close the violent misdemeanor loophole. I want to pass state-level gun permit laws. I want to implement state and federal background checks. I want to enact red flag laws with due process protections. Yes, I know what I just said. I want you guys to do some homework on that if you don't understand what that is. But high level, I believe in the Second Amendment gun rights. I believe you have to be responsible to have a gun. I also believe we need to have stricter restrictions on those who access guns. But guns are going nowhere, y'all. And that's not a solution. Also, giving access to people who don't deserve it is not a solution. Pointing at each other is not a solution. Let's meet in the middle and have a conversation for a safer America, which would include rights, responsibility, and restrictions, okay? We do this in so many other sectors of our world. Proper education, proper training, proper restrictions. We need to bring that in fullness to the gun conversation. I read what Popovich said. I read what Ted Cruz said. And the only thing that we're going to get from that is more of the name calling, more of the blame game. Wow, lives are being lost in those moments as everyone points their finger at each other. Let's do better than that because we are better than that.